So in the last lecture, I discussed about the Joule-Thomson coefficient, okay, and also the isentropic expansion, but it was incomplete. So today, first I will discuss the relation between the Joule-Thomson coefficient and isentropic expansion coefficient. So as you know that isentropic expansion implies an adiabatic reversible process, while isenthalpic expansion are irreversible. For this reason, it appears that expansion engines are preferable to the isenthalpic JT valve, but this is not always the case. Okay, the JT expansion does approach or equal isentropic efficiency under certain conditions. Okay, this occurs when the expansion is desired near or below the critical point of the process fluid, which is exactly the condition desired for the liquefiers. Okay. So these relations I already derived in the last lecture, and also proved that for a perfect gas, Joule-Thomson coefficient equal to 0. So what is the meaning that a perfect gas would not experience any temperature change upon expansion through an expansion valve. Okay. When you know that a Joule-Thomson coefficient is a 0, means if you are reducing the pressure, it is not affecting or changing the temperature. Okay. So this is the physical significance of and ideal gas. You know that at a very low pressure and high temperatures, all the real gas behaves as the ideal gas. Okay. And the objective of this liquefaction of gases here, the objective is to liquefy the gas. Okay. For different applications. So here all the gases, if you remember, there is a compressibility factor from the thermodynamics. Z is equal to PV by RT. Okay, where Z is called as a compressibility factor. Okay, so when Z is equal to 1, you can say that the real gas behaves as the ideal gas. Okay. So, and at a very high temperatures means the temperature is 2 times of the critical temperature, and at a very low pressures, when the pressure is lower than the critical pressures, then you can say that real gas behaves as the ideal gas. Okay. Next, so here for the perfect gas, when gas at a high temperature or at a low pressures, it behaves as the ideal gas. At that times, when you reducing the pressures, it is not changing the temperature. Okay, so that's why for a perfect gas, mu h is equal to 0. Okay. Now, second case, if you apply the van der Waals gas, okay, relations for the gases, and you know that what is the van der Waals equations? That is the P plus A by VA square into V minus B equal to RT. Okay. So what is the physical significance of these two constant A and B? Others have the usual meanings. A is a measure of the intermolecular forces. What is this? A measure of the intermolecular force. Okay. Intermolecular force. And B measure of the finite size of the molecule. The constant B is the finite size of the molecule. Okay. And the value of A and B differ from the gas to gas size of the molecules. Okay, so now you can see that when A and B equal to 0, when A equal to 0, what is the meaning that? So you will find that when A and B equal to 0, the PV is equal to RT. So it means that because the perfect gas has no intermolecular force, what does the A represent? A represent the measure of the intermolecular force. So when A equal to 0, it means that there is no intermolecular force. And when B equal to 0, it means that the molecules are considered to be a mass with a mass point with no volume. Okay. So when I told you that you can differentiate these equations, okay, and substitute this value here, you will get like earlier I did for the perfect gas, you will get the Joule-Thomson coefficient. Okay, I leave this as your homework. Okay, to prove that mu h is equal to 2a by RT into 1 minus b by v whole square minus b divided by Cp into 1 minus 2a by v into 1 minus b by v squared. Okay. Now consider the case when suppose V is very large. So for the large value of the specific volume, what you will find that this terms becomes the B by V becomes the 0. Okay. Here also, so you will find that mu J for right here for a large value of the specific volume, okay, means V is very high, then what happened that this terms it's in a denominator, so 1 b by v becomes a 0. Okay, here also it's become the 0. So you will get that mu h is equal to 1 by Cp, okay, 2a by RT minus b. Okay, so now consider the case when mu h is the positive, okay, greater than 0. So you can substitute here. So what you will find that 2a RT minus b greater than equal to 0. I have considered first case if mu h greater than 0. Okay, then rearranging these terms, you will find that T less than 2a by RB. Okay. Another case, if mu h is less than 0. Okay. So T greater than 2a by BR. So you know that for coolings, Joule-Thomson coefficient must be a positive. Okay. So what you will find that this one is called as the inversion temperatures. Okay. Ti is the inversion temperatures. Okay. When you substitute the mu h equal to 0, no, if you remember that when mu h equal to 0, it is the inversion temperature. Okay. So this is the T less than Ti. What is the meaning that? It means that when gas which is at a temperature below the inversion temperatures, okay. So here you can see that the tables. Suppose the gas which is at ambient temperatures is expand in the JT valve. Here you can see the inversion temperature of the gases, oxygen, argon, nitrogen, and air having that inversion temperature is higher than the ambient temperature. Okay. So when the gas expand through the JT valve having the temperatures lower than the inversion temperatures, what is the meaning that here you know that A is the represent the intermolecular force. I told you na, A measure of the intermolecular force. Okay, so when T is lower than the inversion temperatures, it means that intermolecular force is huge, and when the gas expand through the valve, we need a more energy to break this intermolecular force. Okay, so that so this energy is supplied by the internal energy of the gas to break this intermolecular forces. Okay, during the expansion of the gas, therefore when the internal energy decreases, therefore the temperature is decreases. Okay, so that's why when the gas having the temperatures means which is at the temperatures lower than the inversion temperatures is start cooling. Okay, means we are getting the lower temperature than the inlet temperatures. Okay, when the mu h is the negative, so you know that it is a heating. Okay, so here the temperatures is higher than the inversion temperature. Suppose the gas at temperatures at the ambient temperatures which is higher than the inversion temperatures. In case of, you can see that neon, hydrogen and heliums having the inversion temperature is lower than the room temperatures. Okay, so you can see that in neon the inversion temperature is 250 Kelvin, hydrogen 202 Kelvin, and the helium 40 Kelvin. Okay, which is lower than the room temperature. So what happened that in this case the intermolecular forces are weak. Okay, so we need a very small amount of energy to break this intermolecular bond. Okay, and all the energy is supplied to the means it will increase the kinetic energy of the particles. So if you remember that from the kinetic theory of gases, when the kinetic theory means kinetic energy of the particles increases, it will increase the temperature. Okay, that's why when the neon, hydrogen and helium is expand through the JT valve, it is not decreasing the temperatures, it will increase the temperature. Okay, so that's why we need a pre-cooled before using these gases as the coolant. Okay, so that is the reasons we need a pre-cooled the neon, hydrogen and helium. So I hope your doubt has been cleared why we need to pre-cool this neon, hydrogen and helium, because its inversion temperature is lower than the room temperature. Okay, so these things so this is the reasons why we need a pre-coolant, or we allowed to helium, hydrogen and neon to expand and produce the work before using as a coolant. Okay. Next is that isentropic expansion coefficient. So okay, so here first I will complete this one. So this is the case when the temperatures is lower than the inversion temperature, then mu h is positive, and when T is greater than the inversion temperature, this is the okay. Another one is that when Joule-Thomson coefficient, next case is that when the Joule-Thomson coefficient is a 0, here you can see that when you substitute mu h is equal to 0, what you will find that, remember these things I discussed for the large values of the specific volume. Okay, large values of the specific volume. Okay, so these things I discussed about for the large value of the specific volume. Next, when suppose the inversion curve is, you know that the inversion curve is represented by all points at which Joule-Thomson coefficient is a 0, And in case of the for van der Waals gas, when you substitute mu h equal to 0 here, okay, so when you substitute mu h equal to 0, then what you will find that 2a by RT, okay, into 1 minus b by v whole square, 1 minus b by v whole square equal to b. Okay. So when you solve these equations, you will get that inversion temperatures Ti. Okay. So Ti is equal to what? Ti is equal to this terms going on this side. I have considered the T is equal to Ti. You know that when mu h is equal to 0, that is the inversion temperature. So what you will find that it's a 2a by RB, okay, into 1 minus b by v whole square. So this is the inversion temperature, okay. And for the higher temperature range, in case of the higher temperature range, for in higher temperature range, okay, the inversion curve for van der Waals gas can be approximated by Pi is equal to 2R by 3B into Ti minus R square by 3A into Ti square. Okay. So for the maximum inversion temperature, how can you find the maximum inversion temperature when P equal to 0? Okay. If you remember that maximum inversion temperature for van der Waals gas is the temperature on the inversion curve at P equal to 0. So you will find that the maximum when P equal to 0, you will find that Ti maximum, that is the 2a by br. Okay, this is the maximum inversion term temperatures, maximum inversion temperatures. Okay, next one is that isentropic expansion coefficient mu s. So I already discussed that what the mu s. Mu s is defined as the partial derivative of T with respect to the pressure P at a constant temperature, constant entropy. Okay, means for the during the isentropic process. So again you can consider you have considered S is, let S is the function of STP. Okay, so you differentiate this one, you will find that ds is equal to partial derivative of S with respect to temperature T at a constant pressure P into dt plus partial derivative of S with respect to the P at a constant temperature T into dP. Okay, so if you remember this terms becomes the, when I discuss the thermodynamic relations, this is the Cp. Okay, when you multiply with the times, it's a Cp by T. Okay, and this terms is the from the Maxwell relations minus, if you remember, this is the minus partial derivative of S with respect to the P at a constant temperature T is equal to partial derivative of B with respect to the T at a constant pressure P. Okay, so when you substitute this value in the TdS relations, you will find that so TDS is equal to, so this T cancels, so Cp dt, okay, minus T into partial derivative of V with respect to the temperature T into P, okay, into dP. Okay, so for isentropic process, you know that this terms become the zero for isentropic process. Okay, so what you will get, that you will get that 0 is equal to, so when you rearranging these terms, I directly write here, you will rearranging these terms, you will find that partial derivative of T with respect to the P at a constant entropy is equal to 1 by Cp T into partial derivative of V with respect to temperature T in, at a constant pressure P, and that terms is equal to mu S. This one equal to mu S. Okay, so that's why I have written here mu S is equal to 1 by Cp T into partial derivative of V with respect to temperature T at constant pressure P. Okay, again you can apply the perfect gas. For perfect gas you can see that, or ideal gas, so what you will find that if you know that a PV is equal to RT, okay, now you can differentiate, so you will find that at a constant pressure P is equal to R by P is equal to V by T. So now you can substitute, so you will find that mu S is equal to what? V by Cp. Here you can substitute V by T, na? So T cancel, so V by Cp. Okay. And when you are applying the van der Waals equations, for the van der Waals, similarly you can do it. You can differentiate and then substitute. You will find that mu S is equal to V by Cp into 1 minus B by V divided by 1 minus 2A by V RT into 1 minus B by V square into 2A by RT into 1 minus B by V whole square minus B divided by Cp into 1 minus 2A by V into 1 minus B by V square. Okay. This is equal to sign here. Okay. So you can see that when B by V is a positive, what you will find that so this terms is greater than 0. Okay, so this terms mu S is the positive here. Okay, so next I need to find this relation mu H minus mu S. So what you will do, you will subtract these two, this one and this one. You can subtract these two relations. So what you will find that, so when you subtract these two, so you will find that mu H minus mu S is equal to 1 by Cp T into partial derivative of V with respect to temperature T at a constant pressure P minus B, okay, into 1 minus Cp T into partial derivative of V with respect to temperature T at a P. Okay, so these terms becomes cancel. Okay, so what is the remaining? So remaining is that minus Cp. Okay, So that's why here it's written that mu h is equal to mu h minus mu s is equal to minus v by cp, and when you substitute pv is equal to rt, you will find that that is equal to minus rt by p cp. Okay. So what is the physical significance of these terms? So you can see that two things when mu h is equal to mu s. First one is that when v becomes the zero, okay. So when v becomes the zero, then mu h is equal to mu s, okay. Another case is that when cp tends to infinity. When cp tends to infinity, then again mu h tends to mu s, okay. So what is this? So here first case I am discussing about when v equal to 0, when v does not ever become the 0, but that becomes increasingly smaller at a lower temperatures and elevated pressures. You know that at a low temperatures and high pressure v becomes a very small, okay, but it not equal to the 0, okay. Therefore at a low temperatures and high pressures, what is this? At the low temperature and the high pressures, mu s tends to mu h, okay. So they are preferred condition of the JT expansions. Next case is that when Cp tends to infinity, and that is happened near the critical point for all the fluids, okay. This is valid near to the critical points for all fluids, okay. So you know that when Cp tends to infinity, then mu h tends to mu s. As the critical point of the gas is approached, which is exactly the condition desired for the JT expansion. Okay, so that's why here I have written that this occurs when the expansion is desired near or below the critical point of the process fluid, which is exactly the condition desired for the liquefiers. Okay. So hence the condition for the JT expansion are often the same as the condition for V, means volume is a minimum and Cp tends to infinity, then mu h tends to mu s under the real conditions. Okay. So therefore, when the expansion is meant to produce the liquid or occurs near or below the critical point, the JT expansion may be indistinguishable thermodynamically from the isentropic expansion. Okay. So that's why we generally used, and you know that another disadvantage of isentropic engines is not handling the two-phase systems. Okay. So real expansion engines have a difficulty operating in the two-phase regions. Okay, and there is no such device has been developed which handle the two-phase problems. Okay. So this is the case. Now I hope your doubt has been cleared. What is the difference between the when the real gas becomes the ideal gas? Okay, and why the Joule-Thomson coefficient is negative for the neon, hydrogen, and helium? Because its inversion temperature is lower than the ambient temperature or room temperature. Okay, but you can see that for other gases, its inversion temperature is higher than the room temperatures. That's why we don't need any pre-coolant or expansion engines to pre-cooled these gases. Okay, to use as the coolant. Okay. Next is that these things I already discussed in the last lectures. Coefficient of performance. So you know that what is the coefficient of performance? So it is the ratio of the refrigeration effect to the work input. Okay. So you know that COP is equal to Q by W. Okay. And what is the figure of merit? Figure of merit is defined as the ratio of real refrigerator to the ideal refrigerator, and you can write the figure of merit in terms of the COP as a COP of real divided by the COP of the ideal refrigerator. Okay, and you can also write in terms of the Carnot, because in the Carnot you know that all the process is a reversible process, so that is the maximum COP. So you can write the COP of the Carnot. Okay, so the figure of merit is defined as the ratio of the COP of the real refrigerator to the ideal refrigerator. Okay, but in case of liquefier, liquid yield, okay, so you can define the figure of merit for the liquefier, which is generally defined as the FOM. This is the Wi by M divided by the W by MF. So what is the Wi? Here the Wi represent the work of compression for ideal cycle. Okay, this is the work of compression for ideal cycle. Okay, and what is the W? W is the this one, this W. So W is the work of compression for the actual cycle. Okay, this is for the actual cycle. And what is the M? M is the mass flow rate through the compressor. This M is represent the mass flow rate through the compressor. Okay, so here M is the mass flow rate. Mass flow rate through the compressor. Okay, through the compressor. Okay, then MF. What is the MF? MF is the liquid yield. Okay, MF is the mass flow rate of the liquefied in the actual cycle. This is the mass flow rate. Flow rate of the liquefied in the actual cycle. Okay, okay, and you know that for the Carnot cycles with the two isothermal and two isentropic process, COP is the COP of the Carnot is equal to QC divided by this is the energy balance that I already discussed in the previous lectures. QC, okay, is equal to TC, and you know that from the thermodynamic temperature scale, that is the for the reversible process, ratio of the heat flux is equal to the, or heat transfer is equal to the ratio of the temperatures. So TC by TH minus TC. Okay. Okay. Here I have shown the ideal liquefaction systems. So thermodynamic ideal liquefaction systems. So here you can see that here this process 1 to 2 is the isothermal compression process, and the work input required, you know that is equal to the, this is coming from the steady flow energy equation, and W is equal to H2 minus H1 plus Q. Here this Q is called as the heat loss, and means it is not heat loss, it's called as the heat inleaks. Okay, so this is the heat inleaks, and this is the expansions through the expander. Okay, and then you are getting the liquid yield. Okay, so whatever amount in the ideal liquefaction systems is what whatever amount of gas entering to the compressor is completely converted into the liquid. Okay, so that's why here M and MF is the same. Okay, so but in actual cycle, I mean during the actual liquefaction systems, M is not equal to the MF. Okay, so MF not equal to the MF in case of the actual cycle, but in the ideal liquefaction systems, M equal to MF. What is the meaning? That whatever amount of gas entering to the compressor is completely converted into the liquid yield. Okay, and this is the 2 to F. Process 2 to F represents the isentropic expansion, means the work produced by this expander. And what is this? This is, you know, that H2 minus HF. Okay, so that's why here it's written that H2 minus HF. Okay, so here, but what are the problems in this? Since the COP was developed for Carnot refrigerator with the two isothermal and two isentropic process, it is unrealistic to use that expression for comparing the cold gas refrigerator in which the energy is absorbed at a varying temperatures. You know that in the Carnot cycle, the energy is absorbed at the constant temperature. But here, in the cold gas refrigerator, the energy is absorbed at the varying temperatures instead of the at a constant temperatures. Okay, so in such case, so I will show the TS diagram here. TS diagrams for this case. So if you remember the Carnot cycles, it is something like this. Okay, Carnot, but here in the actual one, where the temperature is absorbed at the varying temperature, so you can write here. This is the vertical lines. Okay, so this is the T1 and this is the T2, T1, T2. So during the P is equal to constant, means pressure is constant. At the constant pressure, it absorbs the energy. So this is the QC, okay, and ejected at a temperature TH, okay, QH. So this is the cycle, okay. So now you can write the COP. In this case, you will write that COP ideal is equal to, I have written per unit mass, so Q C divided by the M divided by the, just like earlier I have written that now for Carnot, QC by QH minus QC. So here just I divided numerator and denominator by M. So what you will get, that QH by M minus QC by, here I have considered the absolute value. Okay, so now what you will do, you know that QC by M is equal to what? That is the H2 minus H1. Okay, and this is at the constant enthalpy process, so you can write the TH is equal to H3 minus H4. Okay, you can write 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so when you substitute this value, what you will get, that you will get that H2 minus H1, okay, divided by TH into H3 minus H4 minus QC by M is equal to what? That is the H2 minus H1. Okay. Now for the ideal gas, you know that for an ideal gas, H2 minus H1 is equal to Cp into T2 minus T1. Okay. And you know that this is the isentropic process. So S1 is equal to S4 and S2 is equal to S3. Okay. This one. So here S1 is equal to S4 and S3 is equal to S2. So now you can substitute this value here. So what you will find that I will write it here. So you know that H2 minus H1 is equal to Cp T2 minus T1, and that is valid for the ideal gas. Okay, and you know that during the it's isentropic process from process 4 to 1 and here 2 to 3. Okay, so you can write that H3 minus S4, that is equal to the S2 minus S1. Okay, and the entropy change for a constant pressure process means during this process 1 to 2. Okay, for a process 1 to 2, what is this? You know that S2 minus S1 is equal to Cp natural logarithm of T2 by T1. Okay, minus R natural logarithm of P2 by P1, and you know that P1 is equal to P2, so distance becomes the 0. Okay, why? Because P is equal to constant. So what you will get that? You will get that Cp into natural logarithm of T2 by T1. Okay, so now when you substitute this one here in this relations, what you will find that? You will find that COP I is equal to T2 minus T1, okay, divided by the TH, okay, then natural logarithm of T2 by T1 minus T2 by T1. Okay, so this is the COP for the ideal refrigerator. Okay, so you know that liquefaction is an open system process. Therefore, for ideal liquefaction system, two processes from the Carnot cycle are utilized. That is the reversible isothermal compression followed by the reversible isentropic expansion. Okay. So the pressure that must be attained at the end of the isothermal compression for even an ideal nitrogen liquefaction system is extremely high, on the order of this 70,000 megapascals, which is impossible to attain such a pressure with the existing compression equipment. Okay. Here I have, if you remember, I discussed the work input, means ideal work input required, means the work input required during the ideal cycle is, this is the, if you remember, T into S1 minus SF. When I discuss this equations is coming from the steady flow energy equations, H1 minus HF. Okay. So this is the work input. So the applying the energy balance to this ideal cycle so that the work per unit mass liquefied is given by the minus Wi by mf. Here I told you that what is the meaning of the minus sign? Minus sign is indicates the work done on the system. Okay, so this is the work input, and that is equal to the T into S1 minus SF minus H1 minus HF. Okay, now you can see that here I have shown the W by mf into 10 raised to power minus 3 kilojoule per kg. You can see that in case of the hydrogen, we need this much 11.62 kilojoule into 10 raised to power minus 3. Okay, so you can say that joule per kg. And in case of the helium, 6.67, and other gases it's low. You can see that in case of the argon, it's a 0.467. Okay, and methane it's a 1.053. This work input during the ideal cycles has been obtained at a initial temperature. I assume that it is at a 294 Kelvin and the pressure is the 1 atmospheric, means 0.101 megapascal. Okay. So in the ideal case, I told you that in the ideal liquefaction systems, the amount of gas compressed is equal to the amount of liquid, liquid yield. It is equal to the amount of the liquid yield. Okay. So since all of the gas compressed is liquefied in this ideal liquefaction cycle, and M equals the MF. Okay. Next cycles which I am going to discuss, that is a simple Linde cycle. Okay. So here I will ask this question to roll number 3119. Shailendra.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me that which one is that refrigerator and which one is the liquefier? Here there are two diagrams is given, that A and B. Both are look similar. This is the compressor. This is the compressor. Heat exchanger.
Yes.
Heat exchanger. This is the valve. JT valve. Okay. And this is the
Yes.
storage. So
which is the, sir, can you repeat the
refrigerator.
question, sir?
Figure A is the represent the layout of the refrigerator, or figure B?
Sir, figure A, sir. Figure A is refrigerator, sir.
Why?
Sir, because it is in the liquid, we can see that that liquid is taking heat. So we can say that it is cooling the environment.
And
and the second diagram, we can see that the liquid is rejecting heat.
In both the cases, you can take that, na? Here in the liquid, what is the basic difference? Here you can see that the mass flow rate of the working fluid is same throughout the cycles. Okay, you are not taking any liquid yield. It is stored. When it's absorbing the heat from the refrigerating space, it is vaporized. Okay, but the mass flow rate is the same. Okay.
Okay. Yes, yes.
So it is same throughout. You can see that everywhere it's the M. Okay, all the points, it is the M. Mass flow rate is the M.
Yes.
But
yes,
in
yes.
in liquid, we have taken the liquid yield MF from the storage tank. Okay.
Yes. So some mass have been condensed also.
So now you can see that here the M minus MF, when the returning gas having the mass flow rate is the M minus MF, not M. Okay.
Yes.
That's why we needed to give the makeup gas so that when it's entered to the compressor, mass flow rate is the M. Okay, that's why you can see that here I added the mass flow rate of MF gas to the returning stream. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah. So this is the basic difference between the refrigerator and the liquefier. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shailendra. Okay. So in the ideal process, the gaseous refrigerant is compressed. Now you can see that here whatever I am talking about, that is the ideal conditions. Okay. So the gas has been compressed isothermally. So that's why you can see that the process 1 to 2 represent the isothermal process. It is a compressed in the compressor, and Q represents, if it is not insulated, then some amount of heat leaks to the surroundings. Okay. And 2 to 3 is represent the heat exchange between the gas coming from the compressor, which exchanging the energy with the cold fluid coming after the expansions. Okay. So here you can see that 2 to 3. Yes. So 2 to 3 represent the constant. You know that heat exchangers works and at the constant pressure. So 2 to 3 represents the constant pressure process, okay, and 3 to 4 represents the what? Expansion. It is the isenthalpic expansion process. So 3 to 4 is the isenthalpic expansion process. Okay. Then here you can get the liquid yield. It is a mixture of both the gas as well as the liquid. Okay. Then this mixture returns and it's means this here in the storage tanks it taken absorbing the energy from the refrigerated space, okay, and some amount of the liquid has been evaporated and it's returning to the compressors, okay. So that's why if G21 is the energy exchange with the warm gas, okay, and again return to the 1, okay. But
Hello,
in
sir.
the case of the liquefier, the thermodynamic is yes.
Yes, sir. In the isenthalpic expansion, sir, are we taking it as a irreversible process or reversible process, sir? Because in the graph it is like a solid line.
It is the irreversible. Isenthalpic expansion is the irreversible process, no? It is a dotted line. No? Here it's showing that okay.
Yes,
It's
yes.
isenthalpic is written that H is equal to constant. It's isenthalpic expansion in the JT valve, and you know that it's the irreversible process. Okay. So
Okay, sir.
yeah, and when in TA diagram is the same for both the refrigerator and the liquefier, but what is the difference? Here you can consider the one more state, the F, that is the liquid yield. Okay, so you have taken out the liquid yield from this systems. So this is the F. Okay. Now we need to. So the Joule Thomson. Okay. So now you need to do the energy balance and the mass balance to find the liquid yield. Okay. So here you can see that what is the work done on the compressor. You know that work done on the compressor, that is the minus W by M. Okay. And it is the work on the isothermal process. So minus W by M is equal to T1 into S1 minus S2. You know that this is the S1 minus S2 minus what? The enthalpy at 1 minus H1 minus H2. Okay. H1 minus H2. Okay. So this is the work input, and if you need to find the what is called refrigeration duty or effect, so you know that is the here H1 minus H2. Refrigeration duty you can write Q is equal to M. I am talking about this case for the refrigerator case. Okay, simple ideal simple Linde refrigerators. Q is equal to M into this is the T4 into Hg minus S4. Okay, Hg minus S4, and that is equal to the, you can write M into Hg minus H4. Okay, H4. So assuming that no heat inlets to the refrigeration system as well as negligible kinetic energy and potential energy, so using the energy balance around the heat exchanger, expansion valve and the liquid reservoir, that the refrigeration duty is also equivalent to, okay. You will find that when you consider this one as the one system, so you will find that what is this? This 3 is considered as the one system. So you can write that, and this is Q represent the refrigeration duty or effect. So that is the Q is equal to, you can write the M into what? H1 minus H2. Okay. So when you consider the heat exchanger, valve and the liquid reservoir as a one system, so when you make the energy balance for these systems, you will find that what? Q is equal to M into H1 minus H2. and you know that COP is equal to what? COP is the Q divided by the W. Okay. So when you substitute this value here, okay, don't confuse. I told you that minus sign is here because it's showing that work done on the systems. Okay. So when you substitute here, you will find that H1 minus H2 divided by T1 into H1 minus H2 minus